Hello, hello, everyone. This is Christina
This is Kjell.
and we are here with New Earth Conversations podcast. For those who don't know, I love to help people connect with their souls and their body wisdom. I'm initiated as a curandera and a song carrier, and I just love helping people connect with their voices, their hearts, so that they could live up to their full potential. Kjell, what would you like to share?
I am all about purpose, understanding who we are, why we're here, and what we have to offer. And for most of my life, I've been searching for that, and now I'm in the position to help people uncover those answers for themselves. So I think that's a good summary for who I am.
Sweet. So today we're going to delve into the topic of standing in our power, not falling into a victim mindset, and just practical ways to not get carried away.
Yeah, getting swept up by the wave of like what we're being shown and what like
the
what
media stream, the media storm.
Yeah, because I mean it is happening. This is a really good topic because like there is a lot of crazy shit going down right now, and I don't want to discredit it by any means necessary. And I think there is credence to acknowledging like how much shit is hitting the fan. So it's important to acknowledge, but I think what this whole episode is about is like the energy and the context from which we're acknowledging it. So are we being swept up by it, or are we observing it and then choosing to empower ourselves and create what we want rather than allow this to define what we have and what we're capable of having?
Right, and rather than letting it just completely sweep you away in fear and anxiety and paralysis and a sense of defeat or whatever else, it's possible to witness events that are taking place from a more objective or neutral lens and simply take it as information. And it's okay if feelings arise. The feelings are there to be felt. They're there to be witnessed. And ironically, the more that we give ourselves full presence with those emotions, the quicker they tend to move. It's when we're not wanting to feel that fear or anxiety that it tends to stick around longer. So it's okay if we feel surges of frustration or anger or sadness or whatever other emotion, but when we get stuck in ruminating in that and wallowing in that, that's when we start to enter the victim mode, because now we're letting life sweep us away rather than taking accountability for what we do have power of in our lives and making empowered choices and doing things that create the world that we do want to see. And that moves into this theme of, we can be for something without being against anything. And logically, this trips people up. The intellect is like, how can that happen? If I'm for kindness, then surely I must be against meanness or rudeness. But the soul feels differently. The soul is just for kindness. It doesn't need to be against anything. The way that you combat, even using those terms, I wouldn't prefer to neutralize rudeness. If someone's being rude at me, if I offer genuine kindness, it's most likely going to melt them into a more kind way of being. Or they'll get really frazzled and triggers. That's fine too. I could still hold my way of treating someone else with kindness and respect because that's rewarding to me, because I feel good offering that to someone else. I don't need their reaction to be a certain way for that to be fulfilling to me. So in that way, we can move from a place where we're speaking and acting and behaving in ways that are going to build more of the world that we're wanting to create, more of how we're wanting to relate with others.
I think it's important to acknowledge with any context of like wanting to see change and seeing things you're not happy with. And I think this is what we're, as a collective, shifting more into is an understanding of how energy really works, how reality really works. And we've for sure known for a while now about like law of attraction. In essence, like attracts like. So if we apply this to the way we're viewing society now and this political change and how we're facing it, how we're responding to it, or more or less, more often than not, reacting to it, like you said, if you react to someone who's mean in an angry way, like attracts like. So it's the same thing with the way we want to see things show up in the world. Like we can, I don't mean to say like you're not allowed to. It's a part of the process is meeting resistance with more resistance. But in order to actually see a change, you do need to move into a more objective or a more empowered and conscious energy of what you actually want to see. So rather than allowing the injustice or the struggle and the pain and the suffering to keep you in that energetic context of like, look at everything that's not working, that's exactly what the system, quote unquote, is designed to do. That's what we believe it's designed to do, and we're going to find evidence for it. And then we end up just wallowing, like you said, in our misery and not doing anything about it. And it's funny because we're proving ourselves and the system right, where it's like, see, this is we're fucked. And it's like, I mean, yeah, if you think we are, we are. And it's just a subtle but powerful shift into like, well, what could I do differently and what could I see differently for us to not be screwed? Like, how can I actually take action and communicate differently with people around me and just like see things around me in a way that empowers me to see the reality and create the reality that I want? And my mom, she's like the poster child for a long time for allowing this mess that we're in, so to speak, to just completely overwhelm and disempower her. And very recently I had a phone call with her where it was honestly like a huge breakthrough. I was like so proud of my mom because she was sharing her disheartenment and her frustration and like, yeah, shit's screwed. I mean, like there's a lot of things that are wrong, but then she like took a moment, she paused, and I could feel her center herself. And she was like, but you know what? She's like, I'm just going to do the best I can to be kind, to be loving, and to just be the best person I can be. And I like teared up because I'm like, fuck yeah, mom. Like, I was like, this is like literally exactly what we can all do to make the biggest difference is just by embodying that change we want to see. I mean, there's so many quotes and hilarious just like colloquialisms and cliches that are applicable in this context. And I do want to make a point. It's like, I'm not trying to diminish the injustice and the things that suck, because there are a lot of things that suck. And I'm not just saying, well, just focus on the positive. No, it's not toxic positivity. Like there is an acknowledgement to be had and things can be better. But if we're coming from this place of, like you said, like this is wrong. And it's like, well, all right, that's cool until we can shift into a more like objective and centered and neutral place of like, well, what do I want to see that will work? We're going to continue to create more and more evidence of what's wrong. And it's like when you think about, you want to buy a new car and you look at a blue Jeep and then you start seeing blue Jeeps everywhere. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's the same thing with problems in the government or injustice. If you're looking for injustice, whether consciously or not, you're going to continue to see it. And if you're not aware of yourself in this process, it's going to bring you down. And you're going to be stuck and you're going to keep perpetuating the cycle that you're trying to break free of.
What your example with your mom brought up for me was how, despite whatever is going on the world stage, and it is quite a stage, I will say, that very rarely seems to have a direct influence on like our day-to-day, moment-to-moment interactions. Like, who am I hanging out with today? What am I cooking myself for breakfast? And you may say like, oh, but the price of eggs is now this. Now I can't buy that for this. You know what? Touche on that. But what I'm getting at is it's like, if you're upset let's say you go into a spiral, you finally come into the knowledge of like, oh my God, they've been spraying glycophosphate on all the food and it's seeped into oh my God, there's microplastics in our bodies and in the water system. And oh my gosh, the pharmaceutical companies are trying to keep us sick so that they could profit off them. What? Oh my God, they fund the medical schools. So what the doctors are learning is just to help them sell more of their product. Oh my God. Okay. You start waking up to this. It's alarming. I get it. It's a lot, especially if it's coming to you all at once and you haven't had a chance to gently assimilate that amount of information. After you have an emotional release, again, cry, shake, let it move. Yeah, bunch your fists, hit some pillows. Have a healthy, contained release that's not lashing out at anybody else. And when you've returned to your center, you have the option to go to your local farmer's market and set up a CSA with a local organic farm that uses regenerative methods, who really cares about not spraying glyphosate all over their fields. You have that option. You can get a more locally sourced food situation going on. So like certain shortages don't actually affect you as much. In Atlanta, Georgia, where I live, for example, there's a beautiful company called Fresh Harvest where they source 80% of the produce from within 70 miles of the Atlanta area. And so I haven't actually noticed any of the supposed shortages of things because I'm a little more resilient by relying on my neighbors. You have the option for your health, right? You can decide what you put into your body. You have purchasing power. You can vote with your dollar. So everything you spend your money on, you're saying like, I am for this, whatever is connected to this. I do my best to source from companies that I deem doing things in an ethical way, that are treating workers fairly, that are considering the repercussions of what they're doing on the earth and the ecosystems, that have a consideration of keeping these resources available for future generations. We have the ability to do some light research. It doesn't even take that long to put our dollar towards that, and we vote with that. And that has to put some sort of pressure on those companies to defer to what it is that the consumer is really desiring. And so we have a lot of power in that. And another beautiful example, if you're feeling overwhelmed by like systemic injustice, oh, in low income neighborhoods there's not access to low priced organic food, there's a lack of food sovereignty is a term that's used. There was this incredible woman, I love her so much. I don't remember her name. I saw it years ago, but she had created a GoFundMe or something similar where she noticed in the low income, mostly Black neighborhood that she had grown up in, there was this lack of access to organic food. And rather than beating her arms up and down about it and saying, oh my gosh, how unfair, how unfair, how unfair, woe is us, the system is screwing us over. Rather than getting locked into that, she was like, well, what can I actually do about it? What influence do I have? And she decided to create a fundraising campaign to get supplies, and she took it upon herself to knock on all of her neighbors' doors on that street and say, hey, would you like me to teach you how to start an organic garden? And I have all the supplies, and I'll do it with you. I'll teach you how. And lo and behold, so many of her neighbors started growing organic gardens, and it created this beautiful bonding of this now literal community. Like they not only live near each other, but this heartfelt, heart connection, kindred spirit type community was being built through this project. And lo and behold, they had surplus of organic food, so they had to continue dispersing it to the streets around them because they couldn't even eat it all by the time harvest came. And that whole area for several streets abound now had access to all that. So that is just such a beautiful example to me of someone who didn't get bogged down in what felt unfair and rather took practical action. She didn't try to save the whole world from this. She dialed it in to like, what can I can knock on the neighbors around me. I can knock on their doors and start there. And it had this beautiful ripple effect. And she was just one woman with one reasonable request and asking. And she was so abundantly supported in the fundraising campaign for good reason. Because humans are naturally altruistic. I know we get a bad rap. Some people think our nature is like greedy and whatever, but we're actually pretty awesome. We love helping people who we love and care for, who we think are inspiring or doing something to uplift others. We want to pour our generosity into them and support them. And she had so much money pour in to support this project. And then she was able to ripple it out even more to even more streets.
To play off of kind of what I was saying earlier with like, it's not fake it till you make it. And it's not about avoiding information or staying in a bubble just to feel safe. It's about finding safety in whatever bubble you're in. And that, I think, because a lot of people, from my observations of seeing a lot of people who would probably consider themselves very woke and involved and activist and all that stuff, if they were honest about their actual energy and like how they were feeling and how people probably felt around them, like they're not the most regulated all the times, and they're not the most content or peaceful, joyful. Not that they don't experience these emotions, but what I've noticed, a lot of people who feel the need to be super involved, I feel like it's at what cost? Like, is there an intent behind your involvement? Is there an awareness behind your involvement? Or are you just getting involved just to get involved? Is it an egoic place of like, well, I know all this information, thank God. Well, what are you doing with it? Like, is it just bringing you down and pissing you off? Because then you're really smart, but you're not happy. Which I don't think, that's where that whole ignorance is bliss thing comes from. It's, you can know is a lot of information, but what you're doing with the information and how you're actually choosing to respond to it, I think, is the biggest factor. And also not to like condemn people for not doing it your way. Like, you might have your path of activism or involvement in the community, in the world, in like ways that you want to make a difference, but not everyone makes the difference the same way. And I don't think it's fair to judge people who, like my mom, for example. I know my mom is making a huge difference just being adorable, loving Arlette, and just talking to people in an elevator, just being sweet. Like, I think she's making more of a difference with her energy and her connections in those small moments than if she was to go on Facebook, which she probably does, and complain about Trump. You see what I'm saying? Where it's like, we all have our ways of getting involved with the community and connecting and making a difference. And I think it's important to recognize that we do all have a difference to make, but how it shows up is going to look different for everybody. And there's no reason to judge or condemn people who are not fighting the fight the way you think that they should. And if anything, I would ask you to reflect, why do you think that there needs to be a fight in the first place? And
right.
Like, what could come from reframing that context of change? And that's not to say that you're not allowed to be angry or frustrated or rageful or whatever. Like, these are all natural reactions and responses to being a human. But you mentioned presence before too. I think sometimes things need to just happen and unfold, like reactions, whether it's individually or collectively, where people just, there's an uproar. And I think there's a gift in those situations, but I think true change, whether it's on an individual level or on a collective level, comes from presence and conscious choice and direction rather than reaction. We're all doing the best we can, but I think what I'm getting to is the importance of our vibration and our energetic signature and where we're coming from energetically makes, like, energy speaks louder than words.
If we're going on an online rant and chastising or scolding others or correcting them or having this energy of combativeness or me versus you, that's all just contributing to separation consciousness, and that is literally the seed consciousness that births wars. This is gonna be a tough love moment. And maybe it'll be a stretch. But if you go online and you say someone is a horrible human being for X, Y, or Z beliefs, that's contributing to war consciousness. That is sending a ripple through the quantum field that will allow that soldier to not feel an emotional reaction to killing his brother. Like, think about that for a second. Our moment-to-moment, day-to-day interactions have a big impact energetically. And if you're wanting, for example, wars to cease, how can you create peace in this moment? Because the only thing that's going to alchemize war consciousness is the energetic of peace. So how can I create peace in this moment? How can I create genuine camaraderie? Where can I feel the humanity of this other person? Perhaps we're disagreeing in the realm of the intellect and ideas, but at the end of the day, I bet if they saw you drowning in a river, they'd come in and swim after you, especially if it was before they heard your beliefs. People get real salty and maybe they'd be like, good riddance, let them go. But what I'm saying is, like, we have this natural desire to help. We love kindness. We love when we receive kindness. It lifts up our spirits, regardless of what we believe or our ideas. Like when I went to my sister's wedding, it was, a rural Alabama wedding, and there's a lot of different ideas floating around. If what you're speaking of doesn't personally interest me, I'm still going to smile, be engaged in the conversation, and ask if you'd like a cup of tea. And I'm going to serve you that cup of tea. And that's what matters. I'm hugging hello, hugging goodbye. I'm engaged with my presence. I don't need to agree with everything that you're saying. And honestly, I don't care. I've come to a point where, like, I very rarely feel triggered by other people's ideas, because I've come to a point where it's like their reality is their reality and mine is mine, and they can coexist. And it's fine. It doesn't mean anything.
It's so important that we understand, like, there's spirituality, science, they're really coming together in a way that can teach us so much about ourselves and each other. And, like, to understand that the universe, like you were saying, is based in unity, because for so long we've been in separation and polarity. But everything in this planet, even my bed and this wall behind me, is all made up of the one universal source energy. So if we're all made of this one energy, it's not that far-fetched to think that we're all connected and that there's unity in that. And that's where our souls meet, is in that unity. That's why our souls are like, I'm for kindness. What about being mean? Like, what does it matter? Like, they can see the bigger picture and not have to be so upset about the thing that they don't agree with, because they don't really disagree with anything. Everything just is. And to recognize this principle and integrate it into situations where we're trying to see change, or where we see so much disconnect, and like, how can people act this way? Where it's like, I mean, Trump is a perfect caricature for this exact concept to integrate, where it's like, if we could take a moment to look at Trump and just see him as the human that he is, which I know is really hard for a lot of people, even me sometimes. Like, he drives me nuts. But at the same time, I also know that underneath all of his stuff that makes me upset, there's just a soul incarnated in a hilarious looking red-haired guy's body. There's power to understanding that even the craziest and radical of people, quote unquote, which is still subjective, this is our perception of them, do still come from the same cloth. And the irony in that understanding is that, like, so many of us want peace, like you were saying before too, but we're approaching it from that energy of separation and combat and fighting and like right and wrong. And it's like, right and wrong and duality and peace don't exist at the same time. Like, so the only way we can have peace is with acceptance and understanding, which means you might be in the room with someone who has completely different views than you have, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be the end of the world. Like, we don't have to start a war over it because they believe this and I believe that. It doesn't always have to lead to fighting. I know so many people are so upset and frustrated for good reason, but there's been so many avatars and wise people over the years that have all come with this information. Gandhi, Jesus, MLK, they're always like, we can't fight hate with hate. And they were all speaking to a really powerful truth that can be applied very usefully today in this chaos that we're all experiencing.
Yeah. And I think the beauty of whatever your feelings are, given the current political climate, personally, I don't have a reaction towards the man. The one and only Trump. I know I'm gonna have to edit that part. If my mom's watching this, I see you, Mom. I love you. I mean, my mom, okay, let's use my mom as an example, because she's a peach. Kjell, you've met my mother. One of the most beautiful, generous people on the planet. She might as well be Mother Mary incarnate, because she will give the shirt off her back to anyone in need. When I was growing up and the workers who were working on construction in the backyard or whatever came in, she would create a whole full course meal for them to have for lunch, and she'd bring them out fresh lemonade or whatever she made, and she would insist that they take a break and they eat a meal, and these men would come in so bashful but so grateful. Aww. Like, oh, thank you. And she taught me the beauty of generosity and hospitality and just being kind. She has friends. They're not able to be friends with anyone else who supports Trump, but they're still friends with my mom because my mom's actions speak the loudest. Her energy speaks loudly. She's a good-ass person. She's a good-ass soul. She will treat you even better than you can see yourself because she sees the purity of who you are. She has a level of forgiveness that is saintly. She has forgiven atrocities that have been done unto her in the most unjust ways, and she's responded with absolute forgiveness and trust in the divine to offer whatever remedy is needed in that, without any spitefulness, without any vengeance, without any, oh, they'll get what's coming to them. None of that. With the attitude of, they know not what they did. They know not what they did. They must have been ill in some regard. She knew their spirit was not well to have behaved in that way. And so her natural response is forgiveness. And this is my mother, my beautiful mother. And she loves Trump. For some people, that's like, it can't compute. And to me, I've so loved that she is that, because when I was a young liberal arts student and was politically involved at all, or just like had an opinion about that, it triggered me and forced me into a cognitive dissonance that made me realize ultimately that someone's beliefs don't have anything to say about their character and who they are and the beauty of who they are. And I know that this can be really crazy for people, but I genuinely don't have an opinion about this man in the office. It is inconsequential to me who is in the White House, because I am living my life on my terms. I am going to live my life to the most empowered degree that I can, regardless. I understand that there's this phenomenon where we take someone's beliefs or what they say or what they speak, and we extrapolate that to a crazy degree. Like, oh, if they're a blank supporter, then that means they're a horrible person, they're racist, fascist, violent, rude, despicable. And that's where the judgment and the condemnation comes in. And we're just inviting you to have a pause between those two moments. What if their beliefs stand alone?
Mm-hmm.
And their character and their energetic stands on its own? And why not be open and curious to witness those for exactly what they are? No more and no less. I don't have to agree with the beliefs. I don't have to be in close proximity to them if I don't enjoy their treatment of me. But is that actually what's happening? Because what I found, once I washed myself of the conditioning that had been bestowed upon me, I realized humanity's freaking beautiful. You go to any average Joe on the street and you can have a beautiful heart-connecting moment in conversation. Shoot the she with the cashier. You know, like, you walk around, families are playing in the parks, they're laughing, people are high-fiving over some drinks on the patio of the restaurant. You're hugging your friends, you're laughing, you're smiling, you're dancing together. Like that's what's real. That's what's happening. Just giving the people the chance to show their true colors and their energy beyond their beliefs. Like what if we just don't let the beliefs mean anything else about them? Just take it as that little isolated unit of information and set it aside. And just see what it's like to be in the presence. Obviously, you don't have to interact with anyone who you don't want to, but are you only not interacting with them because of their beliefs? Because, can you see? It sounds ridiculous. Why would you say it like that? It sounds prejudiced and like it's so ironic. Like,
yeah, when you word it that way, I was like, "This is hilarious." What do you think?
Yeah, and with that, I know that we're on a shorter time today, so thank you all for listening to our conversation here. Again, I'm Christina. If you'd like to connect with me more, you're welcome to hop on my website, GaiaSophia.com. That's GAIA-SOPHIA.com. And I'm also on Instagram as @Hathor'sDaughter. And Kjell?
If you want to reach out to me, get in contact with my work, or at purposemeetingjoy.com /KJELL-Phillips /, and then also I'm on Instagram at instagram.com/Puka Shell, but Shell spelled the way my name is spelled, which is KJELL.
How do you spell puka?
PUKA.
Perfect. Alrighty, my lovies. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
This was fun. Thank you.
Bye.